We are back at it again and again and again. I am your host, the hip hop scholar, Melanie. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and for our live audience, we have a live audience this evening here to celebrate and listen to our special guests. Let us know where you're from, where you're listening and joining us live, and how you're feeling this evening because tonight we welcome an artist whose journey embodies discipline, excellence, and resilience. Hailing from the city of Chicago, Chi-Town, a city that has given hip hop some of its sharpest voices and fiercest competitors. TBA rises not just as another name on the mic, but as a force carving out his own lane. He is more than a rapper, more than an athlete. He is the living example of what it means to grind with purpose in every arena of life. On the football field, he was sharpened by the unforgiving lessons of competition, the sweat, the sacrifice, the teamwork, the weight room hours, and the grit it takes to suit up and give everything for the team. And in the booth, he channels that same discipline into lyrical fire, weaving bars that aren't just heard, they're felt. His verses carry the hunger of someone who refuses to settle, who pushes beyond limits, who takes every setback and flips it into fuel. This is a young man who doesn't just chase dreams, he constructs them brick by brick with consistency, hustle, and unshakable focus. Where others see obstacles, he sees opportunities. Where some might fold, he doubles down. TBA represents the next wave of hip hop artistry, one rooted in authenticity, grounded in discipline, and driven by a vision that cannot and will not be confined. His journey is proof that hip hop is more than just the music, it is the mindset, a playbook for survival, and a declaration that we are capable of more. And right now, that vision is alive on his latest album, Lost en Route, out now on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Deezer, and Tidal, featuring sound out tracks like We Ain't Really Getting Into That, What a Day, and my personal favorite, Cut the Line. So get ready for an evening of insight, inspiration, and raw energy. This interview is a celebration of ambition, artistry, and the unstoppable force of hip hop itself. So drop your questions in the chat or hop on the video call. You can jump right in and speak to TBA as well as myself, Melanie, the hip hop scholar. So again, welcome to our special guest.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the detail and thought out, description. I really appreciate a lot of the research you put into it. So thank you very much.
Of course, of course. We definitely we honor here at the Hip Hop Scholar those who are synthesizing the old with the new and creating something new. And that's what turned me on to your music, TBA, is that you do give nods to the old school. In your video, Cut the Line, you actually had a real landline phone in that video, which I thought was super cool. What was the thought behind having that nostalgia in your video?
So it's actually really funny. I actually found that in my basement of my house, and I was just like, you know what? It just had happenstance. It just happened that I happened to have it, and I was like, this really fits perfectly. So we're just gonna we're gonna bring it in, and it was kind of irony. It wasn't something I previously thought, but it happened the way it happened, and I was like, you know what? Let's just bring it on, and it fit exactly how what it was going for. So it just worked out perfectly.
It definitely did. I want to ask you a favor because when I see the phone, it brings old school memories to myself because I grew up with the landline phone. But today is my sister Monica's birthday, so I wanted to ask you, TBA, if you could just wish my sister a happy birthday, and even those who are here in the live chat, drop her a happy birthday there. But TBA, if you would, could you wish my
Yeah.
sister that, please?
Yes, big happy birthday. How I don't know how old you turning, but however old you are turning, happy birthday. I wish many more years of blessings and wisdoms upon you. May the Lord give you the power and strength to keep pushing through whatever you're going through and make every day better for you. So happy birthday.
I know that's right. Happy birthday, Monica. I appreciate you taking the time to say that, TBA.
hmm
And also I want to ask you, this is a question that I ask most of my artists when they come on. When did you fall in love with hip hop? Was there a song? Was there a style? Was there something specific? Do you remember when and where you were when you heard hip hop?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest exposure to it probably was like more so like third grade, fourth grade. That was what 2008, 2009. So I'd hear it on the radio. B96 was playing a lot of hip hop back then. WGCI. So I think that was my really first introduction to it. When I like got reintroduced like early, like middle school, I was like starting to listen to like start mostly Chicago stuff. So that was when Chance the Rapper was first, getting put on. Mick Jenkins, uh, the Childish Gambino was somebody I was really big on. So that's when I fell in love, I guess, for the second time. And then the third time that's actually being as an artist was around like 2017, the big boom, 2016, 2017, when all the SoundCloud era hit.
Mm-hmm,
That was when
mm-hmm.
I, fell in love with it in a different way, more in the artistry side of things.
That's right. And so, are you in the performance style of it? Do you like the freestyle? Do you like the written part of the music? Do you like the visuals? Because I mean, you have some very dope videos out on YouTube that the audience and everybody can check out. I mean, you are doing a masterful job in a lot of the arenas when it comes to sharing hip hop with your audience. What's your favorite part about creating the music for your audience?
I think it's the creation. The creation of it is the most fun part. That's the part that you remember the most. I mean, I look back on all the videos we've shot and everything, but the thing that I cherish the most in it is the actual creation, being in the studio and making those memories. A lot of the music I've made has been in a somewhat collaborative setting. So I remember a lot of those sessions, and I think that's the part that really, whenever I'm losing motivation or anything, I think about those times. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is what we do it for. So it's that connection, that community.
That's right. Always remembering that why when it comes to hip hop, and just presenting yourself, whether you're performing or placing a video together or in the booth. It takes a thinking process to build that confidence, and then also the power of the words that you share too. I think that I know like that cut the line. I really, I want to play the video, just a little bit of it when we get into
Mm-hmm.
the podcast. But the first, when you say, why they acting like they know me? They knew me back when I was working on my lonely. They knew me what 17, and they didn't really know me. Look at my
Yeah.
old school pictures that something don't show me. But I like how you're like don't say that you know me when you saw me by myself in a time when I was working on myself, but all of a sudden now I'm on top and now we friends or we family now. Is that kind of what you were thinking with those lyrics when you sung on Cut the Line?
Yeah, so like when I think about like that song, I was thinking of a time where when in 2017, because I think yeah, 2017 and 2016 is where that kind of my mind was at. I wasn't even doing music. I was only really focused on sports and football. So people didn't know me for anything music related, which is, the grind of being a high school football player and whatnot. And I that was a time where I felt like I was very overshadowed, and when I was, starting to do music or, starting to move on and go to different avenues in my life, people came back and like, kind of, brought back some nostalgia because people, that's the only way a lot of people connect. But it was kind of like I'm past that time period. So like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily need that connection. So that was kind of like the thought process of that song.
Okay. I mean, it was felt through that. I want to play just a little bit for our audience, if that's okay. I think
Hmm.
this is an exclusive here at the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast where we're going to debut one of our special guests, TBA's song, Cut the Line. Let's see. All right. Let's check it out.
But why they acting like they know me? They knew me back when I was working on my lonely. Ain't seen your ass since 17, we all not homies. You got some pictures from the past, don't ever show me. Is you bugging, huh? You really fucking up. Look back, I'm cutting up until the sun is up. Is you bugging, huh? You really fucking up. Look back, I'm cutting up until the sun is up. Look at that whole shit cancer. I cannot answer. She pulling up in a lance. He told the pull like a dancer. Where are your manners? Her nigga hang with the scammers. Stay in the jail with the slammers. I'm going home. I always stay comfy pajamas. I really feel like Atlanta. Winning like Bama. I roll the tide and look after they mess. I digress. Why you ask me for money and then go try and flex? I know my life look lovely, but sometimes it's a mess. Don't give me none of your stress. Go do your own things, they bless. Go do your own things, they bless. Why they acting like they know me? They knew me back when I was working on my lonely.
Yeah.
Ain't seen your ass in 7.
Oh yeah. That's one of my favorite top songs there. I really like that. The whole thing, and then you go into that different beat towards the end of it, and then the simplicity of the video helps for the words to really just hit. So that's one of my
Mhm.
favorites there. Sincerely.
No, I appreciate that. I was definitely go over something simple, and shout out to my guy Valley Visuals. He shot so many of my videos, like an uncountable amount at this point. So shout out to Valley Visuals, and then shout out to Studios by Lex, or Portraits by Lex. She's a photographer out of Chicago. She has her own space. She let us use that space to make that. So shout out to both of them for real.
I mean, yes, shout them out. Definitely shout them out. We're putting the links in the chat there. So if you're here for the live, even if you're watching this podcast recording, the links will be there in the chat for you to access. And definitely show this brother some love, because when it comes to really creating something, it's a challenge to present to the audience what it is you feel and how you're thinking. So I can appreciate that. And so I also want to think about too, when we let's see when we think about that, and we'll see what's happening in just a moment. We got some more people here in the video chat. But what we noticed though is that, how do you juggle, like when you look at before you graduated, you got your master's degree, congratulations with that master's degree,
Thank
and
you.
being a college athlete, how are you balancing the collegiate part as well as the emerging hip hop artists?
Yeah, it was a. I definitely give a lot of credit to God, because I think a lot of the stuff was situational. When I started, when I first got to college, and like music was not a focus. When I first got there, I had no aspirations to be a musician. Um, I wanted to play football and get my degree. I was really going to school just really to come out to play football, so I didn't really care where I went. That's what I wanted to do, is play ball. But obviously, if you know my journey, I got injured. I tore my ACL. That was my first major injury, and with that gap of space, obviously I couldn't play. I found hip hop, and it was really me, my roommate King P. He's featured on a few songs, so we have some projects out together too. Um, and then my other man, my other guy, Hetro. We all had a group together, and we were messing around, freestyling in the dorm room, and then it got competitive, because I didn't have balls, so I got competitive with that. I bought my
Mhm.
own mic, and then after the summer, school went let out, and then the summer came, and that's when I kind of really focused on it. And I was like, hey, I actually like kind of enjoy this. Um, and then other injuries happened that kind of delayed me getting back on the field, so I was just able to really focus on, if hip hop's going to be the thing I put my attention on, that's what I put my attention on. And once, obviously, so I think it's a lot of God, because he took away football, or football got taken away, but then that got put onto me. Music got put onto me, so it was almost like I'm technically getting an opportunity to still get my degree paid for, while I'm trying to recover my body, and then finding a new avenue as well, because sports ain't forever too. So it made that transition a lot more seamless than a lot of people.
That's awesome to find that avenue for you at a time where it was devastating. Had to been devastating. You had been playing football for so long in your adolescence. When you got to almost the biggest stage ever to play football, tragedy strikes, and then
Mhm.
being able to channel that, right, to direct that energy into something positive. like hip hop music, like performing, like the arts of it, that speaks very volumes of the strength of your mind. So I
Mhm.
appreciate that, TBA, because that's what I believe also resonates to the audience with your lyrics, that tenacious spirit of never giving up, to, ignore the world but stay focused and driven on what God has for you. Your path is ordered, and all of that being so important, and bringing that energy too in that music for the audience, super important. And then also with your growing up, you grew up in Chicago, so how was growing up in Chicago? How did that also shape your sound, especially with your storytelling? Because a lot of Chicago rappers, they're down for their storytelling elements and being able to really weave those words in a very Chicago hip hop, rap, lyrical type way, and it's very fierce. So, what about for you? Like you spoke a little bit about at the very beginning about some influences, but also growing up, are you from the South Side of Chicago? Are you from other part of Chi-Town? Like, talk to us.
Mm. So I will say I am from the burbs. I'm from the burbs. We say Chicago because it's a lot simpler to say Chicago, but I am from the burbs. So I would never false flag that I'm a real Chicagoan. But now I grew up in the burbs, and a lot of the influence there was, I mean, I mentioned a lot of the big musical influences growing up was in the burbs. It was Mac Miller around that time period when I was really young growing up. It was Mac Miller, it was Childish Gambino, Tyler the Creator. So those were a lot of people I gravitated to at a young age. And I think a lot of that kind of has influenced my music going forward. As far as Tyler and Odd Future was a huge influence because of the way that they created content. They did the content game early before anybody else, and it wasn't content directed towards music. It was content directed towards their personalities. So looking at that, I know I had a phase in my music career that I was really focused on getting content outside of the music. Just this is who I am as a person, or who my crew is as a person. So that there's a numerous amount of influences in the suburbs versus the city. But I know growing after, I would say, 2016, my focus has been Chicago music, Chicago music, Chicago music. I love listening to people from the city because this city really has the best music in my opinion, and it's so diverse.
Mm-hmm. As the city itself too is a very diverse place. Shout out to Chicago, Chi-Town, the whole state of Illinois. Now, let me first say this. We're going to celebrate that your parents handled their business and did what they were supposed to do to raise you where you were raised. Okay, there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong being raised wherever you from. So shout out to the parents for doing what they
Mm-hmm.
were supposed to do and having you in a place where you didn't have to have certain influences and things that were happening around you. You had other things that you had to contend with, maybe identity, seeking culture, thinking about also the educational system. Your parents wanted to ensure that you had the best education possible so that you could turn around and use that towards something. So I want to say that first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
Be very
100%.
proud of where you're from.
Yeah, no, 100%. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I mean, when we moved out of Chicago, I was 2 years old when we moved out, so I have no recollection of ever being there. But the suburbs definitely has its own challenges as far as especially when I was growing up. The suburb I was in it was predominantly white, predominantly Hispanic. So there was not a lot of like African American people until like I got to later in high school and people really started moving into that area.
Mm-hmm.
But it came with its own challenges of figuring out culture, figuring out my own culture. I really don't think I figured out Black culture and African American culture until I got to college. That's when I really like understood it more than I would say. So definitely some challenges with that growing up in the suburbs. But I'm sure a lot of African American and Black people can relate. They've grown up in the suburbs. Yeah.
That's right. Growing up, raising kids in the suburbs. You have a lot of us that didn't grow up in the suburbs that are raising children in the suburbs, not knowing at all what we're doing, but giving our best effort to raise them, right? Especially to
Mhm.
have knowledge of self. And I want to ask too, like, what music were you listening then? Were you listening to some rap music at that time too, or what type of, because even no matter if it were like you said, Mac Miller. It could have been rock and roll. Hip hop is this molecular structure that encompasses so many different things and has those influences of other genres. So maybe that's with you as well. Maybe there are other genres that also support your hip hop stance, especially as you make the artistry and the music.
Yeah, yeah. I had some a little bit of influence from other genres. Not too much as far as like my creativity, but like I did a lot of online gaming. For I had like a phase where I was in online gaming. So 3 Days of Grace, Skillet, that type of like rock music I was into for a phase in life. And I still every time it comes on, I'm like, okay, yeah, this was a vibe for a time period. So yeah, it definitely got a diverse catalog of stuff I like, but yeah, hip hop is the main. It's the one of one. I can't. Yeah.
I agree. I definitely agree. That is where my research, that is where my thesis, that is my, what makes me the hip hop scholar is that I'm all things hip hop. And so when I hear or see, especially with social media is a beautiful thing because I can see different type of hip hop styles, different type of music and artistry from all over the world, like yourself, TBA. It stood out, especially trying to support small artists, but everybody has their niche, everybody has their style, and so for you it really shines through, right? So I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing and to share with us today, and really reaffirm to yourself that you have chosen wisely to really invest your time into this discourse of hip hop, because you have to have a complex way of thinking to put lyrics together, to create the visual, and to do those things. So, talk to us about the discipline and the dedication. So, whether you're, navigating your identity or even athletics requiring intense discipline, how has your mindset carried over into your music career and even into your life? Like you've had to have had a dedicated mindset with football and academics, because you got a bachelor's and a master's degree. So then, what kind of mindset do you carry when it comes to just those aspects of your art altogether?
My big thing is there's a few things I kind of live by is a control the controllable, right? All you can do is control your controllable day by day. Second, it's something that one of my best friends Sylvester says all the time: know your why. So why do I want to do? Why am I motivated to do what I got to do? Looking at those two things as an athlete, when I realized I was taking wanted to take it serious, um, in high school, I would lift twice a day, every day. I would lift before school, I would lift after school, I would go to practice. So it's built about building that routine. Um, and I'm very me person, the way I operate, I'm very if I'm not on a routine, then things are never gonna happen, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um so as an athlete, like in high school, it was building that routine. Lift twice, go to practice. I wasn't academically the greatest. I didn't have any good academic routines, so my academics were kind of another story. But
Mm-hmm.
and in college, I struggled early on because I didn't have a routine, especially when I got hurt. I didn't have a routine, um, and I wasn't the most academically inclined. So I did struggle for the first like, two years where my grades were weren't up to par. I was still trying to figure out where I kind of was on the whole music thing, and really I didn't take music serious until I would say 20 end of 2019 2020. We had a group, Valley Boy Entertainment. It was me, my guy Chill God, a couple other guys. We had a collaborative group of people we grew up with. We were all doing music, and I think that was a semester that I actually got healthy and I was starting to practice and play football. But I was so dedicated to being part of music. So I was like, okay, now I got to figure out how I want to juggle both of these. So I was working part time. I was balancing the relationship I was in. I was doing football, and I would make it after practice. I think I would go maybe once or twice a week after practice. I'll go to Chicago, from Joliet to Chicago, hit the studio with the guys. Like we had a routine. That routine was starting to get built again. So I knew every 1 or 2 weeks I would use some of that money for my part-time job. I worked at a deli. So I'll use some of that money to hit up the studio. We'll go to this 35th Street on the south side. We'll go there and we'll record, and I was just starting to stack up the music. It was good being at an actual studio compared to recording myself, because that's just not something I'm good at. That's one thing I will not record myself. I'm just not good at that.
Yeah, shout out to them sound engineers. They're needed.
Yeah, I can't sound engineer. That's not my thing. But yeah, no, it's about building the routine. So we built that routine, and that lifted off at least the first year and a half, because I would say probably 50, 60 songs in about a year. And 50, 60 songs in about a year and a half that I was able to just release. And I think it's because I always plan for the future, because I know that stuff can happen. With the injury I always had in the back of my mind that something can happen that could prevent me from doing this for a year and a half, 2 years. We never know. So I always try to stockpile and make sure I have something for a contingency plan if whatever I'm doing, if something happens. So that's kind of that routine that I built for myself at that time. And then ironically, COVID hit. So COVID hit, and it affected a lot of people. I think for me, it gave me even more time to really lock in on music, working in music specifically. So because I was getting a lot of money from work, and I had a lot more time to focus on getting music done. So that was another routine. I think the summer of COVID, it was just going to the studio every other week with it, because I had an excess of money. So again, building that stockpile up, and it's been going ever since. And then a lot of things have changed in that time. Since I started in 2020, I got married, I bought a house. A lot of things have changed, but I've still been able to keep that consistency as far as releasing. I released almost an album almost every single year, with excluding 2022. I've had a project every single year. So I built that foundation to the point where I've still been able to continue even with the life situations changing. And that's all it's about. That's why I say it's about consistency and knowing your why. I wanted to get my message out there. So however I had to do so to do that was whatever I had to do.
That's right. Whatever you had to do to present those words to give to that audience, like you have something so necessary to share. To have 50, 60 songs, and to, like you said, create projects each year with everything going on. It sounds to me that hip hop was a very healthy outlet for you, with everything that you had to balance, and then transitioning that into adulthood, having a family, having a home, establishing and taking care of that. It's comforting to know that hip hop is definitely a strong hold on you, to keep you on that path of assuring that you make the next generation better.
Mm-hmm.
From your generation to the next generation, for your own family and for others. I feel like that's why you make the music. That your why for the music comes from giving back. That saying Kofa. So where you'll go to the south side of Chicago and go into that booth to keep it authentic, right? To get that assistance, to get that particular sound for that respect piece, because it's definitely different than, being in your home and buying all the Amazon equipment and putting it there and making it happen. But when you have a sound engineer, when you have that production team, when you are in that booth, it's a whole different type of vibe and a different energy that you bring. So I want to, I know studio time is not free, but that investment
Mm-hmm.
piece, right? Talk to us about that investment in self, through the money part, through the studio part, and then the lyrics, the time you spent to create 50 to 60 songs. Talk to us about that.
So the investment piece has changed over time. 100% has changed and evolved with life situations. There were, early on, it was, buying equipment, and we're recording out of the dorm room, right? So it's not good quality, but it's what we got to do to, we're having fun, right? Then 2020 hits. We're taking it serious, so we're going to the studio in 35th Street. Shout out MVM Mix. We were going to 35th Street and we were recording all those songs, and that was like, okay, we're getting group sessions. Everybody's putting in money, and we're working on albums together. We were all releasing music together, right? And then I think I was buying studio time up until about what 2022. Um, I met I knew my homie Chill God, his younger brother Afo. He's starting to get into engineering, so I was like, okay, we'll start recording with you, because that was the time I moved out of my parents' house. I had my own house, so I was like, okay, I can't spend as much money on studio time. I gotta figure out a different way. So we start investing in Afo's ability to produce and engineer, and we're making music for free basically, but we're investing in his growth. So that's where a lot of these newer music, like the Lost en Route series, the Lost en Route series, the Lost Year series, that's where a lot of that comes from. That time period, 2022, 2023, going forward, because we were really investing in making him better at his craft, while also creating a something for ourselves. But I mean, even early on, the music videos, if it wasn't for my guy Chill God Valley Visuals picking up the camera and being like, hey, we're gonna figure it out. I'm gonna learn how to shoot videos. That's how it started. And he's an artist as well too, but he really, he shoots music videos as well. And he said, one day I'm just gonna do this. And we ran through it. We invested in each other. He has never, even if I tried to offer money, he has never asked for money. But we invested in each other and we helped each other grow. So I think I've personally been very blessed with a lot of the people around me, trying to further in the areas that I can't touch on myself. And it's definitely, it's push. I would not be here at all without them. Um, but yeah, so like I said, the investment has changed, especially now that going into adult life, the economy the way it is now, you can't spend as much money as you get used to. So you got to figure out other creative ways to get what you want to get. So does that sometimes delay the process? Yes, but sometimes that delaying of the process makes it a better outcome at the end of the day. It makes it more rich, instead of just having all the resources, throwing it at it, and then it doesn't have the same struggle. Sometimes you got to struggle to get it out.
That's true. Something is to be said about that struggle. Using the analogy of football is very different from going from scrimmage to that dome, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
whole different mind frame on how you're going to play when you're in a scrimmage at, right outside of the school. But when you're in that actual game or that championship or that, playoff game, it's a whole different type of a vibe. And I definitely understand that. I'm not sure if you remember. Are you familiar with the rapper called Kanye West?
Of
Yeah.
course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because back in my day, late registration is the song Last Call. And he raps about, and then even has this monologue about how he got into music. And when you were speaking, it reminded me of that, where there's a lot of ups and downs that are happening, but you're still pushing the music. You're finding ways to get into the music. You got your people. You all are in the music. And then in the end, when he finally meets Jay-Z and he joins Rockefeller Records, it just all came into play, right? He was going through such a bumpy time, right? Moving and things changing, and of course the wreck and all that. But then finally, it all panned out. So I
Mm-hmm.
say that to encourage you to continue on, um, because your future vision. What do you see as your career when it comes to the music? Like, what do you want, or what do you see you having when you make it to that space in hip hop that you are going towards?
So that's a work in progress answer I'll give you. It's a work in progress answer, because I think I'm still trying to figure that out myself to an extent. I'll be the first one to say I'm not big on I need to be a celebrity or none of that stuff. That's not me. That like I at this point I'm 26. I'm really just I'm doing this as it's healthy for me to release music, to do music, to be a part of the community. It's healthy for me. It's not about how many streams I get or any of that stuff. That might have been stuff that I worried about very early on, but at this point, that's like, hey, I'm doing what's healthy for me, and I feel like I have a lot of things that I have to say that other people can connect to, real people can connect to, because you could rap about a lot of the fictitious things that are going to be gone when you're gone, but I really want to talk about stuff that's going to connect with others and connect with people, genuine people that are really going through genuine things in life, especially nowadays where um life is real. Like a lot of people are realizing that life is really real. So that's my focus. I think and then early on musically for me, I was very much type A about how I wanted to go about things. Now like I really trying to get to a space where I'm a lot more type B free with it. When it happens, it happens. If things fall into place the way for certain things, I want to let it fall in place instead of, trying to freight train to force things to happen, because that's not it's art. It comes in ebbs and flows, so you gotta let it come in those ebbs and flows. You can't sometimes, so certain times you want to force, other times you don't. You got to kind of realize that.
Oh yeah, flexibility is absolutely uh, something that we all could use. You know, being flexible, being open to change as it comes and as you don't see it. And I'm again happy to hear how hip hop helps you and how it's helping you to help others to navigate life, because life be lifing. Like I say that a lot. Life be lifing. It does what it does, and it just gets even more challenging. But how do you navigate the challenges? You know how just like I guess what was your position in football? What position did you play?
I played center.
Center. Okay, so for those of us that are not savvy when it comes to football, we don't speak in that language. What exactly does the center do?
The center is the I would say the main focal point of the offensive line. They snap the ball to the quarterback, of course, but the play doesn't start until they snap the ball. So they're the person that they're usually the center of the offensive line that communicates to the rest of the offensive line whether, oh, maybe we need to move right, maybe we need to move left, maybe like they're the right hand man for the quarterback basically. So um, I think I explained that right. If there's any football buffs in here that are like, no, then we can talk about that later. But yeah, I think that's the simplest way to explain it.
Okay, so then being a center, I think having that experience as a center definitely puts me in the mind frame of you holding that microphone and knowing what to say, because the center is the person that starts the play. You know, nothing happens even after the quarterback says whatever they're going to say. Nothing happens until you actually move that ball into the quarterback's hand, and that's what is important to see, is that you're channeling again that same focus and that same drive into your music and into your performance, where you know that as soon as you snap this ball, everybody moves. Nobody can move without your movement first. So this is something that I'm hearing you say when you're sharing your message here.
Yeah, no, I mean, because like everything we do is it's all community effort. And like I personally for myself, I pride myself as being a leader. Um, whether that's in my work, in my school, in my sports, in music, or with my group of people I'm with. Um, I want to be a leader and a pillar of support for whoever. So I've if I've got to be the one to push the needle sometimes to do something, then I'm gonna do it. For the betterment of everybody else, of course.
That's right. That's right. For the betterment of others. That's the whole point of music. Like you can't be selfish doing music. I think it's a very selfless thing to create music with the goal of performing it in front of a group of people. I think it's a very selfless act when someone does that, no matter what genre. But hip hop specifically and historically has always been an underdog. right? No matter how much notoriety we can earn, we can be and have, there's still going to be this nuance of negativity that is going to be attached to hip hop, unfortunately. But for those of us, right, and myself being a more seasoned hip hop scholar than you, young person, you're growing into this, right? You're growing into this aspect of using hip hop to help you grow because that's what we do, right? I have a son that's just a little bit younger than you, and being even myself as a professor in higher ed, I want for young people to really understand the value of what you listen to, those lyrics, and then what you say, that communication piece, being very particular and even specific and targeted in the words and the directions in which they go into. And I'm happy to see that hip hop is alive and well with artists like yourself, TBA. I really feel like with the music and even with the visuals, you give a nod to the old school. It has a very nostalgic feel to these videos, but also with your music, it's a very fresh take on um, self help and giving that to the audience in a very lyrical way, right? So I want you to continue in that fashion. I want you to, especially with your group members, go ahead and shout out all the group members. Everybody that you can remember, try to shout them out
Yeah.
right now. Let's give them
So
their flowers right now.
so the crew is it's Iskano Records. Iskano Records. That's the crew. Um, Follow us on Instagram, Iskano Records, of course. But shout out, Afo, producer, engineer, mostly producer. He doesn't like the engineer tag, so but he'll always be one of my favorite engineers. Brino, uh, very very big creative. He's gonna definitely do some big things. Brino, kid Brino on Instagram. He also dropped a project this past year as well, Achieving Phobia, which is a very, very good project. I'm pulling a lot of inspiration from him, honestly. He's pushing the needle. So I would definitely, Brino's a big one. D Moons, he's someone I grew up with. He's a great artist. Not even specifically with hip hop, but I'll say he's an extremely strong rapper, but he's still, he dabbles into the pop a little bit. Um, Valley Visuals, Chill God, been shooting my videos since day one. He's a great artist as well. Kind of more new school hip hop, but he's a vibe too as well. And then my boy, he goes by several names. Austin LEFC. He's the cinematographer. He's the man behind the camera. Crazy, got a crazy camera setup. He's a man behind the camera. But he does a really good job setting up some beautiful landscapes and doing some beautiful storytelling. But no, that's the whole crew. It's Records.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Shout out to you. What say your record label name for me once more?
Ishkano.
Ixcano.
Yeah,
Shout out to Ixcano. That's
yeah.
what's up. That's what's up. We definitely want to shout them out, and encourage you all to keep the movement going, keep hip hop alive. And man, you all are welcome to the Hip Hop Scholar anytime, right? I want, especially like a group setting, if anybody else wants to come in and get interviewed, because again, it's important for this platform to celebrate all artistry with the way that hip hop has been presented to us in many different ways. Just because, like you said and shared, you heard hip hop on the radio, right? What was that radio station once more?
B96 before they went corporate, and then WGCI
Okay. So
107.5 WGCI. Yep.
all right, shout out to that FM radio. And so you heard it through the radio, and then you have people that only hear it through streams, right? They only hear it through downloads, or they may hear the snippet on social media. And then, you may, I'm sure, the cassette tape era is something that, you had to be a part of. The CD era, being able to buy the CD or burn the CD, going into the music shops, music stores. I used to work at a music store too when I was back in the late 1900s. I used to work at a CD shop when I was younger, and being in freestyles and doing hip hop. I've done it for a very long time, my whole life even, and I love to see how it's changing, right? Because my researches in hip hop, but also in Afrofuturism, and truly the essence of how it grows into something that looks impossible, but is absolutely the blueprint of what it's supposed to be. That's what I see in hip hop, right? That is my goal in it. And I'm just like you, TBA. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the streams. It's not about the subscribers, however many we get. You know, I appreciate every single subscriber in an authentic and sincere way, right? Like that's what we do the music for. That's what we listen to the music for, not for anything more than to feel something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all that's really key. And with that, we can listen to one more song if you don't mind. I don't want to leave off just yet. Let's look at one more video that's on Life. What's the name? What's the name of the album again?
Past one is going to be The Lost Years, Lost en Route.
Okay, okay, here we go. So let's listen to What a Day to end this out.
What a day. 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 279, straight off the ramp. I'm never fine, I can recant. Life is a blur, I got a rant. Watch it all burn, do it again. Making my bed, let's get ahead. Thinking the bread, pain on my head. Punching the clock, answer the phone. Sit in my chair, feel so alone. Wanna go home, know that I can't. Answer the phone, feel like the rant. Turn on the stove, put on the show. Go on a stroll, missing the soul. Not feeling whole, taking a toll. Missing my bro, shit really cold. I'm getting old, house getting sold. Feeling alone, nobody knows. Answer the phone, stuck on a hold. Always annoyed, story not told. I cannot do this again. What it feels like. I got my feet on the edge. Does this feel nice? Standing right off of the ledge. This is real life. Hoping I see you again. Let's go ahead, I always vent, full of regret, feel like a mess, so much stress, making amends, guess I'm a wreck, life is a test, I'm feeling less, never get rest, trying my best, see how I went, pain in my head, feel like a guest, pain in my chest, strap in the vest, far from the nest, I'm so alone, I need a vent, always regret, sit and reflect, sit and repent, sit to myself, what a day, 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 what a day.
Yes, indeed. Man, snaps to that. Oh, ooh, that's a
Yeah,
banger there, man. For real.
that's
Oh, y'all folk do like that. Yes.
that's one of those. That's one of those ones. That's a top five track I think I've ever made in my life. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's one of them ones. I'll die on that sword.
That's what's up, man. That's an amazing song. I appreciate your artistry. I want you to continue on. We're gonna put that in the chat and in the comment section. And man, just I want to thank you so much for the time here on the Hip Hop Scholar podcast as well, TBA. Much love to your young brother, and continue on in excellence for sure.
No, thank you very much for having me on this platform. It's a beautiful platform. Continue what you're doing. It's great for the community. No, again, no, doesn't matter on the views, doesn't matter about all of that. It's great for the community because the people that will see it, that are intended to see it, will see it and will be affected by it. So thank you very much for having me, and keep doing what you're doing as well.
For sure, for sure. Well, all right, Hip Hop Scholar family, that's going to be it for us, Young TBA. Check them out on Spotify, all music platforms, everywhere. And we'll see you on the next installment of the Hip Hop Scholar podcast. Peace.